for cancer, I had MRIs, I had ultrasounds, I had CT scans, just you name it, I was checked for everything.
What if I told you that the little girl once known around the world for wearing khaki beside crocodiles was quietly fighting battles that had nothing to do with wildlife? Bindi Irwin, the beloved daughter of Steve Irwin, grew up under the glare of international cameras, carrying the enormous weight of one of television's most iconic family legacies. But behind the smiling photos, glamorous red carpets, and conservation campaigns was a story filled with controversy, heartbreaking family conflict, and a brutal 10-year medical struggle that nearly changed the course of her life. Today, we're uncovering the truth behind Bindi Irwin's remarkable transformation, the SeaWorld controversy, and a shocking transformation. In March 2014, 15-year-old Bindi announced a partnership with SeaWorld Entertainment for a campaign called Generation Nature, which aimed to encourage children to spend more time outdoors and become involved in environmental protection. The timing could not have been worse. The documentary Blackfish had recently sparked international outrage by exposing the darker realities of keeping killer whales in captivity. Animal rights organizations, including PETA, immediately criticized Bindi's involvement, arguing that she was contradicting the conservation principles associated with Steve Irwin's legacy. For the first time, the young conservationist faced a major public backlash. Australia Zoo and the Irwin family defended the partnership, explaining that the campaign was intended to educate young people about wildlife and inspire positive environmental action. Nevertheless, the controversy became Bindi's first harsh lesson in the reality of public image. Even a conservation advocate could become the target of intense international criticism. A year later, another dramatic shift occurred. In 2015, Bindi joined season 21 of Dancing with the Stars in the United States, partnering with professional dancer Derek Hough. Because she was both a minor and a foreign citizen, unusual legal complications arose, including court documentation related to her late father before financial contracts could be finalized. When she stepped onto the Hollywood stage, audiences experienced genuine shock. The world was accustomed to seeing Bindi in khaki uniforms, ponytails, and hiking boots. Suddenly, she appeared in sparkling ballroom gowns, dramatic makeup, and high heels. Media outlets everywhere debated her transformation from crocodile hunter's daughter to glamorous young adult. Some praised her confidence and maturity. Others reacted negatively, claiming she had abandoned the wholesome image they had known for years. Bindi ignored the noise and focused on the competition. Week after week, she delivered consistently strong performances. On November 24, 2015, she and Derek Hough won the Dancing with the Stars championship. Their emotional finale, dedicated to Steve Irwin, received perfect scores from the judges and became one of the most memorable moments in the show's history. The victory marked an important turning point. Bindi had proven that she could step outside her father's shadow and succeed on a completely different stage, while still honoring his memory. After returning to Australia, she continued balancing two public identities: the elegant international celebrity appearing on red carpets and the hands-on conservationist working daily with animals at Australia Zoo. That balance would soon be tested by an even more personal challenge: the little girl who inherited a legacy. Bindi Sue Irwin was born on July 24, 1998, in Buderim, Queensland, and from the very beginning, her life was unlike that of almost any other child. Holding both Australian and American citizenship, she entered a world already surrounded by wildlife, conservation, and international media attention. Her father, the legendary Steve Irwin, chose to name her after Bindi, his favorite saltwater crocodile, while her middle name Sue was taken from the family's beloved dog. Even her name reflected the unusual environment in which she would grow up. For most children, a playground might consist of swings, bicycles, or neighborhood parks. For Bindi, it was Australia Zoo. She spent her earliest years surrounded by crocodiles, snakes, koalas, and exotic animals, often accompanied by television crews filming her father's adventures. At only 2 years old, she made her first appearance on The Crocodile Hunter, standing beside Steve Irwin with a natural confidence that amazed viewers around the world. Audiences quickly noticed that she seemed completely comfortable among animals that many adults would find terrifying. Steve and Terry Irwin chose to homeschool Bindi within the zoo rather than send her through a conventional school system. As a result, her education extended far beyond textbooks and classrooms. classrooms. Alongside mathematics, reading, and science, she learned wildlife conservation, animal behavior, environmental responsibility, and public communication from an incredibly young age. She was not simply observing the Irwin mission, she was being raised to become part of it. Then came the tragedy that changed her life forever. On September 4th, 2006, Steve Irwin was killed while filming Ocean's Deadliest when a stingray barb pierced his chest. The shocking accident devastated millions of fans worldwide and created one of the most heartbreaking moments in television history. For the public, it meant the loss of a beloved conservation icon. For Bindi, it meant losing her father at only 8 years old. Just weeks later, during a public memorial service held at Australia Zoo and broadcast to more than 300 million viewers worldwide, the young girl stepped onto the stage and delivered an emotional tribute to her father. Her calm composure, maturity, and heartfelt words stunned audiences everywhere. In that moment, Bindi transformed from simply Steve Irwin's daughter into a symbol of the family's determination to continue his conservation work. Rather than retreating from the spotlight after such a traumatic loss, she chose to embrace the responsibility that had suddenly fallen upon her shoulders. In 2007, she became the host of Bindi the Jungle Girl, a children's documentary series dedicated to teaching wildlife conservation and environmental awareness. The program became a major success, and in 2008, Bindi received a Daytime Emmy Award, becoming the youngest person in history to win the prestigious honor. By her early teenage years, she had already established a successful television career, appeared in feature films such as Free Willy, Escape from Pirates Cove, and Return to Nims Island, and was increasingly being prepared to help manage the growing Australia Zoo empire alongside her family. To the public, Bindi seemed destined to carry forward Steve Irwin's legacy without interruption. She appeared confident, dedicated, and remarkably composed for someone who had grown up under extraordinary circumstances. But beneath the inspiring public image, growing up under constant international scrutiny would prove far more complicated than anyone could have imagined. The little girl who seemed born for the spotlight would eventually discover that fame, family legacy, and personal identity were far more difficult to balance than the world realized. Love, marriage, and a family rift. Bindi Irwin met Chandler Powell in 2013 when the American professional wakeboarder visited Australia Zoo during a trip to Australia. What began as a chance encounter slowly developed into a genuine and lasting relationship. Unlike the whirlwind romances often associated with celebrity couples, their relationship grew steadily over several years, built on friendship, mutual respect, and a shared passion for wildlife conservation. Chandler embraced not only Bindi's love for animals, but also the conservation mission that had defined the Irwin family for decades. He spent increasing amounts of time at Australia Zoo, working alongside Bindi and becoming closely connected to her mother Terry Irwin and younger brother Robert Irwin. To many fans, he appeared less like an outsider entering a famous family and more like someone who genuinely understood and supported their way of life. On July the 24th, 2019, Bindi's 21st birthday, Chandler proposed in a beautifully arranged setting surrounded by nature and wildlife. Bindi joyfully accepted, later describing it as one of the happiest moments of her life. The engagement was celebrated by fans around the world who had watched her grow up from a child television star into a young woman preparing to build her own family. The couple planned a dream wedding for March 25th, 2020 on the grounds of Australia Zoo, the place that had shaped Bindi's entire life. Everything had been carefully prepared, from the decorations to the guest list, and the ceremony was intended to be a joyful celebration surrounded by family and friends. Then the COVID-19 pandemic changed everything. Only hours before the wedding was scheduled to begin, Australia entered strict lockdowns and implemented severe social distancing restrictions. The large celebration they had spent months planning suddenly became impossible. Rather than postpone the marriage indefinitely, Bindi and Chandler made a deeply personal decision. They chose to proceed with a small, intimate ceremony attended only by Terry Irwin and Robert Irwin. In one of the most emotional moments of the day, Bindi lit a candle in memory of Steve Irwin before exchanging vows, symbolically including her late father in the ceremony she had always imagined sharing with him. Exactly 1 year later, on March 25th, 2021, the couple welcomed their first child, Grace Warrior Irwin Powell. Her name carried profound meaning. Grace honored a beloved family ancestor, while Warrior reflected the Irwin family's lifelong connection to the wildlife warriors conservation movement founded by Steve and Terry Irwin. Motherhood brought Bindi immense joy, but it also exposed her to a new level of public scrutiny. Social media users began commenting on her postpartum body, comparing photographs taken before and after pregnancy, and analyzing changes in her appearance. The criticism was particularly harsh because it focused on a young mother who had only recently given birth. At the same time, an even more painful controversy emerged within the Irwin family. On Father's Day 2021, Bindi publicly addressed the long-rumored estrangement from her grandfather, Bob Irwin. In a candid statement, she revealed that he had caused emotional pain to her family for many years, refused gifts, returned letters unopened, and cut off communication with his children and grandchildren. The revelation stunned the Australian public. For decades, the Irwins had been viewed as one of the country's most united and loving families. Suddenly, people discovered that significant fractures existed behind the carefully maintained public image. As media attention intensified, Bindi made the unusual decision to leave social media for an entire month. She explained that she needed time to protect her mental health and preserve peace for her immediate family. It was a rare and significant moment when Bindi chose privacy over publicity. Yet while the public focused on family drama and online criticism, very few people realized that behind the scenes she was already fighting a far more serious and deeply personal battle, one that had been silently affecting her health for years. The 10-year medical nightmare. Bindi Irwin's health problems began when she was only 14 years old, long before the public had any idea that she was struggling with a serious chronic illness. What started as severe abdominal cramps gradually developed into a relentless cycle of chronic exhaustion, nausea, and debilitating pelvic pain that repeatedly disrupted her daily life, television work, conservation activities, and personal relationships. Over the years, Bindi visited numerous doctors, specialists, and hospitals searching for answers. Yet many medical professionals dismissed her symptoms as normal hormonal changes, stress, anxiety, or the result of her demanding work schedule. She was often told that the pain was simply something women had to tolerate. Like many endometriosis patients, she experienced the frustrating reality of having her suffering minimized, despite the severity of her symptoms. The pain continued for nearly a decade. By the time Bindi became pregnant with her daughter Grace Warrior, the situation had become even more frightening. She later revealed that there were moments when the pain was so intense that she feared she might be losing the baby. What should have been one of the happiest periods of her life was overshadowed by constant physical distress and uncertainty. Despite countless scans, blood tests, examinations, and consultations, no clear diagnosis emerged, forcing her to continue enduring the pain, largely in silence. Finally, in March 2023, Bindi traveled to New York City to seek help from renowned endometriosis specialist Dr. Tamer Sekin. During a lengthy diagnostic excision surgery, doctors discovered the true cause of her suffering: 37 endometriosis lesions scattered throughout her body, along with a large ovarian cyst attached to her abdominal wall. The findings confirmed that she had been living with a serious and progressive disease for many years. The diseased tissue and cyst were successfully removed during the operation. On March 9, 2023, Bindi shared a photograph from her hospital bed and publicly revealed that she had been diagnosed with endometriosis, a condition in which tissue similar to the lining of the uterus grows outside the uterus, often causing severe chronic pain, inflammation, fatigue, and fertility complications. Her candid announcement immediately received worldwide attention. Millions of women related to her story of having their pain dismissed, misunderstood, or minimized for years. By speaking openly about her experience, Bindi helped raise significant awareness about a condition that often remains undiagnosed for long periods, despite affecting countless women around the world. Unfortunately, her medical challenges did not end there. In May 2025, fans became concerned when Bindi unexpectedly missed the Steve Irwin Gala in Las Vegas, an event she would rarely choose to miss. It was later revealed that she had been rushed to Lenox Hill Hospital in New York for emergency surgery to remove a severely inflamed appendix. During that operation, doctors discovered 14 additional endometriosis lesions that had not been removed previously. They also repaired a hernia caused by childbirth, adding another major procedure to her already extensive surgical treatment. Altogether, surgeons had removed more than 50 harmful lesions from Bindi's body. The repeated surgeries dramatically changed her physical condition. The noticeable weight loss and slimmer appearance that had sparked online speculation were not the result of dieting, cosmetic cosmetic procedures, or lifestyle trends. They were the visible consequences of years of chronic illness, inflammation, pain, and major abdominal surgery. For the first time in nearly 10 years, Bindi Irwin was finally free from the relentless pain that had silently shaped much of her adolescence and adult life. Her recovery marked not just a medical milestone, but a profound turning point that allowed her to reclaim her health, her energy, and a future no longer dominated by constant suffering. The new face of the Irwin Empire. After recovering from years of surgeries and chronic pain, Bindi Irwin returned to Australia Zoo with noticeably renewed energy and a much stronger sense of purpose. The recovery marked far more than a physical improvement. It represented the beginning of a new chapter in which she could finally focus on her future without the constant burden of debilitating illness. Bindi officially stepped into a senior leadership role alongside her mother, Terry Irwin, and younger brother, Robert Irwin. Together, they became responsible for guiding the next era of the Irwin family's conservation mission. Her responsibilities extended well beyond appearing in documentaries or attending public events. She became actively involved in overseeing Australia Zoo's expanding wildlife conservation network, tourism operations, educational programs, and international fundraising campaigns. One of her most significant projects has been the management of the Crocodile Hunter Lodge, an eco-tourism resort designed to combine luxury accommodation with environmental sustainability and wildlife education. Bindi also took a leading role in directing initiatives for Wildlife Warriors Worldwide, the conservation organization founded by Steve and Terry Irwin. Through these efforts, she has helped support habitat protection, wildlife rescue operations, scientific research, and conservation partnerships across multiple countries. Under the combined leadership of Terry, Bindi, and Robert, Australia Zoo successfully recovered from the severe financial challenges created by the COVID-19 pandemic. Visitor numbers rebounded, conservation projects expanded, and the zoo strengthened its reputation as one of Australia's most influential wildlife conservation centres. Bindi's growing involvement demonstrated that she was no longer simply the public face of the Irwin brand. She had become one of its key strategic leaders. At home, Bindi devoted herself to raising her daughter, Grace Warrior, with the same deep connection to nature that had shaped her own childhood. Rather than shielding Grace completely from wildlife work, Bindi has gradually introduced her to animals, conservation activities, and educational programs. Grace's frequent appearances at community events and wildlife initiatives have already led many fans to view her as the third generation of the Irwin conservation legacy. Beyond conservation and family life, Bindi has emerged as a passionate advocate for women's health, mental well-being, and the importance of personal boundaries. After publicly sharing her decade-long struggle with endometriosis, she began speaking openly about the importance of listening to one's body, seeking second opinions, and refusing to ignore persistent pain. Her willingness to discuss topics that are often considered private has helped many women feel less alone in their own health journeys. She has also spoken candidly about the emotional toll of growing up under constant international media attention. From childhood onward, nearly every stage of her life, her father's death, her career, her relationships, her pregnancy, and even her medical recovery, was analysed by millions of people. That experience taught her that public perception can easily overwhelm personal reality. By learning when to engage with the public and when to step away for private reflection, Bindi has fundamentally transformed her relationship with fame. Rather than allowing constant visibility to define her identity, she has chosen a more balanced approach that prioritizes family, health, emotional stability, and authentic self-care. Stepping away from social media during particularly difficult periods became an important part of protecting her peace. The little girl, once known for holding snakes beside Steve Irwin, has become something far more complex than the world expected. She is now simultaneously a conservation leader, business executive, wife, mother, public advocate, and survivor of a decade-long medical battle. Her transformation was never simply about changing fashion styles, wearing glamorous gowns, or growing up in front of television cameras. It was about surviving childhood grief, relentless public scrutiny, painful family conflict, the challenges of motherhood, and years of chronic illness, while continuing to carry forward one of the most recognizable conservation legacies in the world. Today, Bindi Irwin stands not as a replacement for Steve Irwin, but as a woman who has honored her father's legacy while building an independent identity of her own. She has transformed personal suffering into strength, public pressure into purpose, and inherited fame into meaningful leadership. In doing so, she has become a powerful example of resilience, proving that true legacy is not about remaining frozen in the image the world remembers, but about growing, healing, and courageously creating a new path forward. Bindi Irwin's transformation from an innocent khaki-clad child into a resilient conservation leader is one of the most remarkable stories of growing up in the public eye. Behind the glamorous red carpets and smiling family photos were years of grief, controversy, painful family fractures, and a brutal 10-year battle with endometriosis that nearly went undiagnosed. Yet through every challenge, she continued protecting wildlife, building her family, and creating her own legacy beyond Steve Irwin's shadow. Which chapter of Bindi's journey surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this deep dive, like and subscribe to PopRazzi Daily for more powerful true stories.